In the United States, conflict of interest issue was raised for Senate members who happened to be advocates, and it was asserted that taking into consideration of the role of advocates in society, also in advocacy, in public policy, they should make an option either to be senator or to be advocate. Surprisingly, that conflict of interest did not find favor. Experience which Honorable Minister has and any minister formerly will have is required. This House will not be utilized to settle such prejudiced personal issues. Shri Praful Patel.
Sir, it was a nice little interlude which you shared with some of my colleagues here in the House. And
have you been minister together?
We were in the same cabinet, sir.
Same cabinet.
And more often than not, we were crossing swords rather than cooperating with each other. But that's all right, sir. We have settled now, so I don't want to revisit the subject again. But thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. Sir, I just want to first start by saying that we as a nation should be proud that gone are the days when we were looked upon as a nation of bullock carts, a nation of elephants and mahouts who would carry people from one place to the other, to a modern, vibrant democracy. And in that large geography of India and the large population of India, civil aviation has become one of the mainstays of transportation for a large number of people. And not only that, civil aviation of India today, in modern India, is the third largest sector, if you count all the nations of the world. After United States and China, India is the third largest domestic civil aviation market. And I also, since my friend has been so kind to me, would like to share with the House that I have also had the proud privilege to be part of this historic journey. And I'm also very happy to note that India today has a very young, modern mind as the civil aviation minister representing this vast nation. So I would also like to compliment him. And I would also like to thank all the people who participated in this journey and also many who became roadblocks in this illustrious journey. So I don't want to go further into that fine detailing. No, authenticate, I will authenticate, then you will not like it. So I will not go beyond that, sir. Sir, basically civil aviation is a subject dear to my heart, of course. And now I see in this House and even in the Lok Sabha when I was there many a time, that as much as the railways, invoked a lot of enthusiasm amongst the members to ask questions, speak on the subject, now it's the same with civil aviation. Every member, every district of the country has become aspirational. Every member wants a flight to land in his own area, in his district, in his constituency. And why not? In fact, it is one of the best things to happen in this country because it was always considered a mode of transportation for the rich and the elite. And now it has become, जैसे हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं, हवाई चप्पल पहनने वाला भी आज हवाई जहाज में बैठने लगा है. ये हमारे सबके लिए बहुत बड़े गौरव की बात है. मैं उनको भी धन्यवाद दूंगा प्रधानमंत्री जी को कि उन्होंने इसका महत्व और आगे बढ़ाने का काम किया और आज सिविल एविएशन एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण हमारे देश का एक विषय बन चुका है. Sir, I only I'm limiting myself. I'm not going into all the things which have been dwelt upon by my previous speaker, because I think there was very little to talk about the subject at hand. Rather, it was more about a diatribe against, I don't know, whatever interests he had in mind. I only want to say, sir, that International Civil Aviation Organization is the apex body controlling aviation all over the world. And it rightly so, sir. It is, aviation goes beyond the shores of India. A plane takes off from New Delhi and flies over 20 countries to reach its destination. And obviously it has to be aligned with each other. After all, it is human souls which are involved. Human transportation is involved. And therefore, it has to be synced, both in terms of safety, regulation. And therefore, the International Civil Aviation Organization over the years has become a very vibrant and apex body for aviation. You can't live in an isolated world, at least in the area of aviation. Not most of the things you can't live in an isolated world. And therefore, the Cape Town Convention, which has been mentioned as one of the objects of this bill, is primarily arising out of many civil disputes which rose over the years. Sir, just for the knowledge of the House, say India has about 700-800 aircraft in the civil aviation sector which are flying passengers. Out of those 700-800 aircraft, more than 500, maybe more, would be on lease to this country. 85% thereabout. That's why I said 500 odd. These aircraft would be leased to Indian carriers. And as a consequence, these lessors who are leasing to our Indian companies also need their protection about the payment of lease rentals and the maintenance of those aircraft as per the leased conditions. You are an eminent legal luminary, so you would also understand that there are certain contractual obligations which have to be met. And one of the main contractual obligations is, one is to pay the lease rental on time, and second is to maintain the aircraft as per the contractual obligation. There were instances in the past where airlines used to not pay, and there may be still instances today also. I don't want to go into any specific details. But as a consequence, if the Cape Town Convention was specifically, I would say this convention endorsed that the lease conditions should be met. Otherwise, the repossession of the aircraft or the asset should be with the lessor immediately, because he is not fulfilling the contractual conditions. In our country, there were some instances where certain courts dwelt upon some of these issues and gave stays, and as a consequence, the international leasing community, which is very large, and as I said, 85% of India's fleet is on a lease model, it became difficult for airlines to lease aircraft, one, both in terms of availability, and second, leasing became very expensive because most lease companies felt that if we are not able to repossess aircraft on time, and if it involves high legal costs, they would obviously pass on that to the lessor. And as a consequence, to the lessee rather. And therefore, as a consequence, this entire act had to be brought in to protect the interests of both the lessor and also make the lessee more accountable. And as a result, if the minister has brought this act, it is welcome. If civil aviation in India is to grow, it has to be in sync with the International Civil Aviation Organization and all countries who are participating. And India now, after becoming the third largest domestic market and soon even internationally, I would say that India would be on the map again at the same position in a very few years. When we talk of India's civil aviation story, sir, it is aircraft, airlines, as well as the fact that we need more infrastructure. And without infrastructure, you can have 100 planes, hundreds of planes coming in every day. You need the planes to land at airports, you need to park them at airports, you need other facilities at the airports. Sir, I'll be finishing in a minute. And therefore, with all this infrastructure, I would say, sir, we have been very good at expanding our infrastructure. I remember we had around 75 airports around the time when I was there. Today that number is almost double. And yeah, exactly, it's double. And compliments. And it will further increase, sir. It has to increase. And the fact, sir, one more thing, as a very important piece of information or advice to the government would be that in infrastructure, irrespective of what the comments, that is a different issue altogether. We need more and more infrastructure. In the bigger cities, sir, all the smaller towns all want to come to bigger cities. And therefore, geographically in India, we have got 7, 8 big cities which will take the pressure of the traffic. We have now a second airport coming up in Delhi, a second airport coming up shortly in Mumbai. But the same would apply to Hyderabad, Bangalore, to Chennai and to Kolkata. And without these bigger second airports, we will be stunted somewhere in our growth of civil aviation. So my advice to the minister would be that to revisit this entire and all the contractual obligations which we have entered in the past. Maybe that time times were different. Now there is a different scenario. We must revisit it. समय के अनुसार हमको बदलना होगा. उसी तरह से इस हवाई क्षेत्र में भी जहाँ उड़ान हमारी बहुत ऊंची होती है, भारत की उड़ान और बढ़ती रहे, लेकिन उसके साथ समय समय के साथ हम भी बदलते रहे. ये बिल बहुत ज़रूरी है और इसके वजह से एयरलाइंस बेनिफिट करेगी, हमारा देश बेनिफिट करेगा, देश के यात्री बेनिफिट करेंगे. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
श्री धनंजय भीमराव महादिक.